Welcome and good afternoon. My name is Kamish Orr, and today we're going to do something a little different with a book review. I haven't, I did a review on the Reggie documentary earlier on the channel, and I've been reading a couple of baseball books lately and thought I would just take some time to tell you what I thought and kind of make some recommendations. The last book I read actually was Joe Posnanski's book, The Baseball 100. And in this book, he actually goes over what he considers the top 100 baseball players of all time, including Negro leaguers also. And it's not just a list of the top 100 players. He actually does an article on each one or a write up on each player that kind of gives you some background on their, in some cases their childhood. In some cases, it's just interesting stories from their playing career and what makes them notable and what makes them included in the top 100. Obviously, there's a lot of room for interpretation or argument to be made on the actual positioning of certain players. And some of them he chose because they're associated with specific numbers and that kind of thing, too. But it's still a great read, one that I would highly recommend. And it actually was a series of articles on The Athletic, I believe, that he wrote for. And in those series of articles, he did like one article on every one of the 100 players leading up to number one. I'm not going to spoil anything by letting you know who number one is, but so it started there, and those just got combined into this book. Poznanski actually, he's written a lot of baseball books. He's a New York Times bestselling author. He has written for The Athletic, as I mentioned, Sports Illustrated, NBC Sports, and so he has a lot of baseball cred there going for him. But the book itself is 870 pages, so it's just filled with great stories on the 100 players that he chose. And again, some players had to be left off just because there's only 100, but he does sometimes work in other stories into the mix too. Rather than this just being a short book review, as I said, I highly recommend you pick it up. I'll leave links down in the description. And by the way, if you do purchase anything through the Amazon affiliate links that I use, I do get a small cut of that, very small cut of that will help support the channel. So by no means do you have to purchase through those links, but if you do, it does help to support the channel a little bit. And I thought I'd do something even a little bit more different than that. And to give you kind of the flavor of the book, I just picked one of the players, and I'm going to just read actually the article or the segment. So if you're just interested in hearing me read about one of the players, stay tuned. It's just going to be a little short snippet from the book, just one player's article, and I think it'll give you a good flavor of the way the book is written and the kinds of information that's included in it to make you help make you make an informed decision on it. And a lot of these players, by the way, I didn't know that much about. Some of the stories are just crazy. And it's just spanning the entire history of Major League Baseball. So you'll learn about players that you may not know much about just by reading the book too. And the player I'm going to choose is, and I'm just going to spoil it by saying he's number 50, middle of the book, and that's Nolan Ryan. So I'm going to read the Nolan Ryan section. Put this on in the background if you just want to listen along. Otherwise, you just watch me read, right? But it'll be something different. And if it's something that interests you, I may do some more book reviews and that kind of thing later on. In any event, so Nolan Ryan was the greatest pitcher who ever lived. Nolan Ryan was the most frustrating pitcher who ever lived. Nobody struck out more batters. Nobody walked more batters. Nobody was harder to hit. Nobody so willingly let base runners steal. Nobody threw more no-hitters. Nobody threw more wild pitches. He was unbeatable. Nobody in modern baseball lost more. It's as if Ryan is not actually a pitcher, but something else entirely. An alien, a cartoon character, a folk hero, a saxophone. Trying to find a place for Ryan on a list like this is a bit like trying to figure out where the Beatles belong on your list of favorite pastas. Nolan Ryan was a sophomore in high school when he threw a softball from one end zone to the other on the Alvin High School football field. Ryan was unimpressed with himself. He'd done stuff like that before, but it profoundly impressed Alvin High baseball coach Jim Watson, who immediately asked Ryan to pitch on the varsity team. From the start, no one could touch Nolan Ryan's fastball. From the start, everybody was scared to death of Nolan Ryan's fastball. He didn't know where the ball was going, Watson said in the book Nolan Ryan, The Making of a Pitcher, and neither did the batter, which worked to his advantage. In many ways, that's Ryan's story in a single quote. Ryan would often say that he developed his arm strength by throwing Houston Post newspapers into people's driveways with his father, Lynn. It's a romantic story, but quite likely true. Nolan and his father had a 1,500 customer paper route. Ryan threw more than just newspapers, however. The young Nolan was always throwing stuff, rocks, sticks, tennis balls, marbles. He didn't care. He threw it through all his childhood. He just liked throwing. And this was convenient because Nolan's older brother, Robert, was a catcher in search of a pitcher. I guess he's the one who made me a pitcher, Nolan later said. Picking up the story, Ryan threw so hard in high school that multiple scouts came after him, and at the same time, he was so wild that multiple scouts went running for the hills. The one who stayed with Ryan was named Red Murph, and he had once been a strong-arm Texas pitcher himself. Murph got only 26 games in the big leagues with Milwaukee, but in that short time he did strike out Frank Robinson, Ernie Banks, Jackie Robinson, Willie Mays, and Roberto Clemente. In 50 innings, that's pretty impressive work. Murph was a Mets scout, and he often said that fate brought him to Clear Creek, Texas, where he saw Ryan pitch for the very first time. He was so excited by Ryan's potential that as soon as he got home, he wrote a note to himself to mark the occasion. This skinny high school junior has the best arm I've seen in my life. This kid Ryan throws much harder than Jim Maloney of the Cincinnati Reds or Turk Farrell of the Houston Colt 45s. I saw them pitch Thursday night, 423-63. Other scouts saw the arm, but none were as moved as Murph was. He seemed to see something in me that no one else did, Ryan would say. The Mets took Ryan in the 12th round of the first amateur draft. To understand the quirks of the draft, look at the Mets picks that year. First round, second overall pick, Les Rohr won 2 big league games. Second round, Randolph Cone never made it. Third round, Joe Mook, great name, played in 13 big league games. Fourth round, Ken Boswell, had an 11-year career, 5.5 wins above replacement. Fifth round, Doug Bertel, never made it. Sixth round, Harold Robertson, never made it. Seventh round, Michael McClure, never made it. Eighth round, Roger Harrington, never made it. Ninth round, Lewis Wilson, never made it. 10th round, Roger Stevens, never made it. 11th round, Jim McAndrew, won 37 big league games. And the 12th round, Nolan Ryan. The Mets managed to sign Ryan for almost nothing. Murph took Ryan bird hunting, and they agreed to terms. The Mets then sent him to Marion, Virginia, where as an 18-year-old, Ryan threw 78 innings, struck out 115, walked 56, hit 8 batters, and generally confused everyone. Now that I've been in baseball, Ryan said, I like it better than I thought I would. Even though he immediately put up Nolan Ryan type numbers, he wasn't yet Nolan Ryan. That first year, he threw sidearmed rather than using the long, slow, over-the-top windup that would inspire a generation. He had a side-to-side sweeping curveball rather than the top-to-bottom curve that would wipe out hitters for 2 decades. He was so skinny that despite spending all off-season on the Mets' command, drinking a meal replacement drink called Sego, he couldn't add a pound to his 6'2", 168-pound frame. But Ryan's style was taking shape. He began to throw overhand as a 19-year-old, and he pitched 202 innings in Class A Greensville and Double A Williamsport. He struck out 307, walked 139, threw 22 wild pitches, and went 17-4 with a 2.36 ERA. Late in that first full minor league season, Ryan pitched a game that foreshadowed his career. He was pitching for Williamsport against Pawtucket, and he was incredible. He struck out 21 batters. Nobody could touch him. And yet Williamsport lost the game 2-1. How do you lose a game when you strike out 21 and nobody can touch you? He did it the Ryan way. He gave up the tying run when Dave Nelson, who would go on to a 10-year big league career, singled and promptly stole second, stole third, and stole home. Ryan gave up the winning run in the 10th inning when a player named Don Gadbury reached on an error, moved to third on a wild pitch, and stole home. Nobody was ever slower to the plate than Nolan Ryan. 10 days after the game, Ryan made his big league debut. "I'm scared to death," he told reporters. He was pretty good in his debut. He faced Atlanta, lasted 2 innings, struck out the first batter he faced, pitcher Pat Jarvis, and also struck out Hall of Famer Eddie Matthews. But he did get a fastball up on Joe Torre, who cracked it over the left field wall. "I knew it was a little high when I threw it," Ryan said after the game. "It kept on getting higher after Torre hit it." 7 days later, he made his first big league start, and that one was a disaster. Ryan lasted just 1 inning, gave up 4 runs, 4 hits, 2 walks, and threw a wild pitch. But there's something else to know about Nolan Ryan's first inning as a big league starter. He did strike out the side. Nolan Ryan was drafted in the Army Reserves in 1967. He returned in June and immediately struck out 18 batters in 7 innings for Jacksonville. "As great as Nolan Ryan is pitching," Dick Young wrote in the Daily News, "I just know that the day the Mets bring him up, he'll get a sore arm." And that's exactly what happened. Ryan's arm just popped. He went to see doctors who couldn't figure out what was wrong. They suggested exploratory surgery, and Ryan said no, or more specifically, hell no. After further observation, the doctors discovered that his forearm tendon was torn and it needed surgery. Ryan said no, or more specifically, hell no. He said he'd fix the arm himself. People began to realize there was something different about this guy. He did fix the arm himself. By 1968, he was throwing harder than ever for the New York Mets. Everything the guy did was like that, like something out of a Marvel movie. The record in the non-Nolan world for strikeouts is 4,875, held by Hall of Famer Randy Johnson. Ryan struck out 5,714. The record in the non-Nolan world for walks is 1,833, held by Hall of Famer Steve Carlton. Just ahead of the 1809 walks by another Hall of Famer, Phil Niekro. Ryan walked 2,795. The record for most no-hitters in the non-Nolan world is 4, held by Hall of Famer Sandy Koufax. Ryan pitched 7 no-hitters. The record in the non-Nolan world for stolen bases allowed is 547, held by Hall of Famer Greg Maddux. Ryan allowed 757 stolen bases. The pitcher over the last 100 years with the most errors in the non-Nolan world is Hall of Famer Don Drysdale with 59, and Ryan committed 91 errors. The record for fewest hits per 9 innings in the non-Nolan world is 6.8, currently shared by Koufax and future Hall of Famer Clayton Kershaw. Ryan allowed 6.6 hits per 9 innings. The modern record in the non-Nolan world for wild pitches is 226 and belongs to Niekro, who threw a knuckleball that would do whatever it wanted to do. Ryan threw 277 wild pitches. The modern record for losses in the non-Nolan world is 279 and belongs to Hall of Famer Walter Johnson. Ryan lost 292 games. The record for most complete games, allowing 2 hits or fewer, in the non-Nolan world is 25, held by Walter Johnson. Ryan threw 37 2-hitters or better. You understand the point, right? He's incomparable. Anything a pitcher can do, he did better. Anything a pitcher can do, he did worse. There's nobody else in this category. This didn't happen by accident. Other pitchers were going for their thing. Ryan was going for his thing. What was that thing? Former batting champion Ralph Garr told a story about Ryan that I think comes closest to explaining. In May 1979, Ryan's Angels played Garr's White Sox in a Sunday afternoon game. Garr led off, stepped to the plate, struck out on 3 pitches that were nothing more than blurs, and when he got back to the dugout, he shouted out in his distinctive high-pitched voice that could be heard for miles around, "Boys, we got no shot today." He was right. Ryan threw a 2-hit shutout and struck out 11. This is what Ryan was going for every time he pitched. He pitched to win games. He pitched to dominate. He pitched to intimidate. He pitched to make the best hitters on earth simply give up hope. He pitched every game with the intention of leaving behind something indelible. Randy Johnson and Tom Seaver combined for an amazing 67 3-hitters or better in their careers. Ryan alone had 69 of them. Sandy Koufax and Pedro Martinez combined for an amazing 215 games with 10 strikeouts. Ryan alone had 215 games. Every time out, Ryan aimed for history, and he refused to compromise, to moderate, to make any concessions at all. Yes, he could have sped up his windup so that base stealers didn't run on him at will. Wouldn't do it. He could have spared a couple miles per hour off the fastball to refine his control. Wouldn't do it. He could have stopped aiming for corners when he was behind in the count, could have been more efficient by not always going for the strikeout, could have taken a few wild pitches off the career total by easing up just a little bit. Would not do it. Ryan wasn't into trade-offs. He wasn't negotiating. He had what I feel sure is the hardest fastball ever thrown, and by God, he was going to throw it. He had a curveball that dropped like a hawk going after its prey, and by God, he was going to throw it. He intended to strike out 27 batters every game. He intended to throw a no-hitter every game, and each batter who made contact, each batter who managed to hit, didn't change the fundamental truth of Nolan Ryan's ambitions. It only made him slightly moderate his goals to striking out 26 batters and throwing a one-hitter. I don't think you can overstate just how many batters Nolan Ryan walked. As you can see above, or here above, he walked almost 1,000 more batters than any other pitcher in baseball history. You can add the entire careers of Hall of Famers Pete Alexander, Robin Roberts, and Mike Messina and still not get to Ryan's walk total. How many walks? Ryan allowed fewer hits per 9 innings, or fewer hits per inning pitch than anyone else. But if you look at his whip, his walks plus hits per inning, he drops out of the top 10, out of the top 50, out of the top 100, out of the top 250. He's 291st. Walks were just part of the deal. The slow windup was just part of the deal. The pitches in the dirt, the errors, even losing all those games, all of it was just part of being Nolan Ryan. The most unhittable pitcher who ever lived. He wanted to fly, and he did fly. Could he have curbed his pitching style and been more effective? Maybe. He never considered it. All in all, Nolan Ryan chose to be Nolan Ryan. And what fun would it have been otherwise? So, if you stuck with me, thanks. But that's just a segment, one little short excerpt from the book, specifically the Nolan Ryan chapter. You get 99 other chapters like that about 99 other great ball players, the top 100 according to Posnanski. And so that's why I recommend the book. Check it out. I'm currently reading another book of his that is the top 50 baseball moments. What is it called? It is called the Why We Love Baseball, A History in 50 Moments. And it's filled with 50 great moments of baseball history. So I haven't finished that one yet, so I can't really do a book review, but highly recommend the Baseball 100. Check it out if you haven't. If you're a baseball fan, you'll love it. You'll learn about players, as I said before. And that's where we will leave things. A way different type of video than I normally do, but maybe you enjoyed it. If so, let me know, and I can do more of these in the future. And with that, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, have a great evening.